I feel like no video game should have mechanics locked behind a thing, because that's effectively telling a set of artists, it is okay for you to paint this picture, but I don't want you to use yellow. I own yellow. I don't like that. And I know that I know Nintendo specifically has tried a handful of times to patent game mechanics that should not be patented. Like the Eternal Darkness thing, that one they succeeded with, but then they had the fight with Palworld over the idea of capturing a unit and summoning it, which is super vague. It's vague as hell. Yeah, no, and
they also tried to do it for mounts and like 5 other things, and then every one of their patents has been thrown out at this point. Yeah. Which is really funny to me.
It's and I don't know if that's just a difference in culture, because like a lot of corporate culture in Japan is very hierarchical, very like person at top said this, therefore you do this, and that is how this happens. Whereas I know that at least in the States, we're a lot more individualistic. We tend to go like, you told me not to do a thing. That's the exact reason why I want to do that thing, actually.
It's not just not do a thing. So last weekend when I was at the convention that I was presenting at, I was presenting, one of the panels I was doing was legally publishing your fan fiction. That is to say, how to publish fan fiction both online and how to physically print it and not get sued. But one of the people that comes up is Professor Harold Bloom, and his statement is that poetic influence need not make poems less original as often as it makes them more original. Strong poets and strong writers will use their misreadings to create strong new interpretations that become original, whereas weak poets will repeat ideas of their precursors. And this really comes to light for me with like Lord of the Rings. And this sounds this is gonna sound weird. So in Macbeth, the play that Shakespeare wrote, Macbeth says, but the prophecy says no man born of woman can defeat Macbeth. Mm. Well, Tolkien didn't like that and took it literally, which is why at the end of the third movie and the third book, the big bad guy who's like Macbeth adjacent gets stabbed by a woman. It's the Ringwraith guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Witch King of Angmar.
Right? Yeah. No, Witch King of Angmar. You're right.
Witch King of Angmar. Yeah. I will say, to be fair, that's a bit of a joke, because technically the reason that happened was he was stabbed with a dagger from Merry the Hobbit, and that dagger technically had magic within it, elvish magic, that broke the Witch King's connection to Sauron, therefore breaking his connection to his immortality. Technically, anyone could have stabbed him at that point. It just so happened to be Eowyn, but it literally
so it just becomes irony. It's just it's irony and a joke.
Yeah. And that's that's kind of the point Tolkien is making, because a lot of times when Tolkien brings those prophecies up, they're either somewhat inconsequential or the prophecy didn't actually matter. Like it's not like a Macbeth thing where it's like, here's this big reveal, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, hey, there's just a series of events that are going to lead to this in a way.
That's fair. I like it when you can take a trope and twist it.
Yeah.
I really like taking a trope and twisting it. So one of my least enjoyed tropes in games or media of anything is the Chosen One trope. I don't like the Chosen One trope. I hate every possible way that can be made, but there are ways that the Chosen One trope can be used that I think are fun. So, like, for instance, Star Wars. The Chosen One's Anakin Skywalker. If you go into the EU, you find out that technically Anakin's dad is Plagueis. Like, in a roundabout technical way, Darth Plagueis is the one that made Anakin. So the TLDR, and me and Saki are rereading the Plagueis book right now. She's not read it before, but I have, so I'm just like, you like Star Wars, let's read this. But what happens is Plagueis, because we find out in episode 3 that Palpatine goes, hey, he had the ability to control midichlorians' life and all that shit, and it couldn't save him. During his experiments, he tried reaching out into the Force with the Force of Life. It was just one of his experiments, and he touched Shmi. He didn't realize that he touched her in the Force, but he did it. He recoiled and went, shit, oh fuck. And then he forgot about it for 10 years. It was a thing that he just went, I did that, I'm not going to do that again, that's fine. And then when Plagueis and Sidious see Anakin Skywalker, the kid. Plagueis is in his guise as Higo Damas because he's one of the banking clan. And he just looks at him, and the internal monologue is, are we undone? Did I fuck us up? Did I make everything wrong? So, like, every single bit of the Chosen One prophecy, all of it was bunk. All of it had nothing to do with anything. It was literally just the dark side undid itself, technically, because it's what it does in almost anything in Star Wars. That's what was actually going on in the background. But you've got to read the books to see that part. So I like that, where the movies go, here's this Chosen One prophecy, and the book goes, kind of, sort of, not really, actually. The guy that Palpatine was talking about actually kind of fucked him over.
Whoopsie!
As very much that. It's very much that.
I mean, that for me was like the Morrowind reveal, which I feel like for our generation was like the big version of that. Because, like, I think the interesting thing with it, or Morrowind, sorry, Oblivion. I don't know why I said Morrowind. Like the reveal within there that it's like you're the chosen one, not because you happen to be born and everyone knew you were the chosen one, but it was just the chosen one is the one who will complete all these trials. And a ton of people tried the trials before you. They didn't get there. And then you get there and now you do achieve it. And I think that's something where so much of the media we consume, like within the fantasy sci-fi kind of realm, has a chosen one narrative, probably because Bruce Campbell is far too influential on it. But like, I think that's where you get tired of it to a certain extent. And I think in a weird way, that's the same thing we're talking about with gaming, where it's like wanting these new mechanics while at the same time wanting the nostalgia. I think in a lot of ways harkens back to this idea that we just, as people who have not just gamed, but like loved gaming and have played a lot of games for years and years and years, you eventually get to the point where you've seen most things in front of you. Yep. And like, if I look at a game and someone's like, oh, okay, so it's a city builder, but you cross that with Dark Souls, I'm instantly intrigued. I know nothing else about any of the mechanics, and it could be a garbage game.
That's me with Claire Obscura. So Expedition 33, as I started it, I went, okay, so it's the somber storytelling of like the darker aspects of Kingdom Hearts. It's the gameplay of Paper Mario, and it's the difficulty do or die of Dark Souls in the parry and dodge system. Okay, you can throw those in a blender and I'll be happy. That sounds good.
And I think that's where, to your point about like copywriting mechanics, I think that's where good new mechanics often come from. Like, yeah, sometimes someone invents something completely new and that's amazing as always. But a lot of times, like where the new mechanics come from is just a blend of the familiar in a way that you haven't experienced before. A
good example of that comes to mind immediately. So I'm a Metroid fan. I love the Metroid series. Okay. I think it's phenomenal narratively. I think it's phenomenal gameplay wise. And Metroid was a 2D series that failed to go into 3D alongside its contemporaries. Like, obviously, we got Ocarina of Time, which was considered for the longest time, this is the 10 out of 10 video game. This is the best game of all time. And now that's kind of a meme, because I remember like Video Game Donkey did a whole thing on, did a whole joke video on, is Ocarina of Time still the best game of all time? And his conclusion was, actually, it still is, but he did it in the very Donkey style of just, it sounds like he's taking the piss, but kind of not. But then we get Metroid Prime, and that's not a Metroid game. Like, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't look or play like what the Metroid games did. Power-ups are not the way they are in older Metroid games. It's a first-person shooter. Everything's just the interconnectedness of the world is very different than how it is in older games. And it's weird, but I think that worked out really well. It took the idea of the console first-person shooter that we already had, gave it a lock-on system, because that makes sense for girl in spacesuit, and that game ended up working. And then that foundation, I will die on the hill that BioShock is just a Metroid Prime game. I think that the foundation for Metroid Prime, all of the bones of that game are also the mechanical bones that make up BioShock.
So I would counter with, it's not just BioShock. The mechanical bones that make Fallout 4 work, especially with the VAT system, and the mechanical bones that make the new Doom games work, started with Metroid Prime's mechanical bones.
Oh, the lock-on system operating the way it did, because I guess the
lock-on system operating the way it did, and in Doom, the glory kill system and the recovering
the executes are basically
armor,
a lock-on.
Yeah, it just locks on, goes straight to it.
I didn't connect that grabbing the health is the same as charging the beam to get your health orbs in Prime. That didn't occur to me.
You can even get a power-up in Doom that works like the lock-on beam for the Gauss rifle.
Yeah,
it sucks in all the health and armor orbs in the immediate area.
So, like, you get the idea of the first-person shooter, very Doom, very Wolfenstein, and then on its bones, you build games like Turok. Turok is a game with a first-person shooter system, but that's an adventure game. You cannot convince me that that is not just a version of an open adventure game from that era. And then you get a game like Prime that builds on those bones, then you get BioShock and Doom that builds on those bones, and then you can keep building up and building up on those bones. You can't do that if you're fucking patenting every little mechanic. Doesn't work.
Well, I mean, that in many ways, and I might even suggest this as a topic for a future episode at some point, but like games are a business. And I think as much as like there's a lot of art that started as art for art's sake, I think even like internet stuff, I mean, you go back to like Golden Age YouTube or even like the really early era.
Newgrounds.
Like, yeah, exactly. No one was making, I mean, people were making a little bit of money on Newgrounds, but nothing to like live on for sure. I mean, Ray William Johnson, who we were talking about before we actually went live, like he actually had to leave, got a marketing job, tried to come back on TikTok for a little bit because he just couldn't make nearly enough money. Games, on the other hand, like were business, and there always was this corporate element. I think in a weird way, the indie scene has been really interesting, and like watching it explode in recent years has been A, very healthy, but B, just fun to witness. But it's like gaming has this corporatism, I think, really deeply at its core, because back in the console era, that's really all you had, unless, you know, you got some weird like Carmack or someone like that. Just, I mean,
most people didn't have the tools to make a video game just from their own home. Almost anybody could have grabbed the tools to make a movie, for instance, or grab the tools to make a book. It would not be a professional one, but they could do it. You can do a home video, you can do a book, you can produce that, but you have to learn an entire language to make a video game. And now, with the scale of what video games have become, you have to have a bunch of people who know that language, and then you've got to have people who are good at doing art, and then you have to have people who are good at giving just fucking ideas that will work for what you're doing, where they understand the limitations of the system they're going on. Because that person going, let's make a giant 3D open world game, but let's run it on the Super Nintendo, everybody's going to throw that guy out the window.
And then like... And on top of that, and this is me taking a direct shot at Todd Howard.
It just works. Writers. It just works.
You cannot have the lead programmer writing the video, being the lead writer as well. That does not work. Looking over at Fallout 4 and Starfield, where the lead writer is the programmer, and they have no actual dedicated writer on staff. Seriously. But also, like, when you're talking about learning languages and programs and stuff, back in the early days of gaming, way back from the Nintendo and Super Nintendo and even the N64, Nintendo required you to submit your game for approval.
The Super Nintendo seal approval system, I remember it.
And on top of that, you're back for consoles still today, you have to buy a developer kit, and you have to buy the license for that kit, and the license requires licensing money to maintain it, because you only get the license, I think, the shortest license right now is from PlayStation. You get a 2.5-year license, and if you want more, you have to pay the license fee again, and it's not cheap. It's several $1,000s per console you need to run your developer kit,
which now runs you into the fun question: can you port your game into that environment in that 2 years before that runs out? Because there are, I remember in Gen 7 of gaming when the PlayStation 3 struggled to get anything that was on the 360, because anytime a game, like Fallout 3 was a good example, anytime any game came out, on the PlayStation 3, the understanding was the frame rate might be a tiny bit better, but this thing's going to be way more glitchy on this console. For us, I think it was a solid 2 years was when that was just kind of like the underlying understood thing with, you have a PS3, this is the thing you deal with. Like if you had a Wii, you understood, I ain't getting third-party games. It's just not happening.
Yeah. No.
But you forgot the seventh or the whichever one. I don't know the generations off the top of my head. But you forgot Dave Grohl's famous line of "I still haven't found games for PS4." That's where that was a classic meme back in the day.
Or the original like console that was impossible to program for, the Sega Saturn.
Yep.
Because it had its own programming language that only existed on it.
And we wonder why that why that console has such a small library.
Yeah. I still own all the Panzer Dragoon games, and I still love them.
Well, but we even saw in that era like a desire for exclusivity, I think, from a lot of those people as well.
Well, because that's how you got console wars. You got a lot of people who went like, I have my Xbox, so I have Halo, and then you'd get, I have my PlayStation, so I have God of War. Then the Nintendo person went, well, Super Smash Bros. Brawl introduced tripping, so I'm going to go play my GameCube. I say this, but the Wii was my favorite console of that generation, so I'm taking the piss at it, knowing that I love it. But
the Skyward Sword ruled. I will defend that till the day I die. I don't care what anyone says.
I'm willing to fight you on that, but I will fight you on it after I do a playthrough of it again to double check all my notes.
You just have to buy the actual Master Sword that you can put the Wiimote in. Because that's honestly the only way to play it.
I'm not playing that game on the Wii again. I bought the Switch version.
So to be fair, from that era, if you wanted to play like platformers and Metroidvania, you went with Nintendo. If you wanted to play RPGs or heavy story games, you went with PlayStation, or racing games. And if you wanted to play like shooters or tactical games,
anything online, anything online was basically Xbox.
Or anything that was going to be like online multiplayer, Xbox. Because I remember from that era,
PSN sucked back then.
It wasn't just that. It was.
Do you guys remember the absolute shit fit when they charged for it, and how much like that was a moment in gaming?
Everybody was just like, "You're gonna charge for this thing that has like a third the functionality of Xbox Live, really?"
But like teenage me remembers like the first time going to like a Halo 2 tournament, and everyone brought Xboxes, everything was on Xbox Live, and then immediately the same center that was running that tournament all afternoon in the evening would run a Call of Duty tournament. And guess what? You didn't switch out to PlayStation consoles. Nope. Everybody just switched the Xbox discs and kept running Xboxes all day.
It's the same thing with me. The card shop that I grew up going to every Saturday had a third of the shop dedicated to just networking about 16 Xbox 360s together. They had 16 original Xboxes, and then they upgraded them slowly to Xbox 360s. So you would go there, and you would pay an hourly fee. So you could sit down there, and you would play LAN against everybody else there. The store took care of everything for you in terms of like troubleshooting it, making sure that everything worked out. And they frequently filled up every one of those seats, and it made concentrating on Yu-Gi-Oh! Matches kind of hard when somebody decided to yell a slur. But I mean, it was still a part of that. It was still fun. It was still fun seeing that as a thing there. And we've kind of, I want to say that getting that vibe again, you can still kind of get it from like gaming bars. That's kind of the only place I can think of right now where you get that vibe anymore.
But like, you're not going to have like my tabletop store where I'd walk in to play BattleTech, and sometimes all the BattleTech tables are full, but they have 3 separate tables with 24 machines all running MechWarrior 4 in a LAN.
Yep.
So like, if you don't have space for a BattleTech game, which you can only run like 2 or 3 games to a table, you just go over to the computer. You pay $10 and you're in for the night.
I think so. There is a place that is near enough to me not to dox myself, called Battle and Brew, and they have, I want to say, a fourth of the store is dedicated to card games. So that's, everybody goes there and plays Magic. And then the rest of it is a bar where another fourth of it is dedicated to PC games. They have these like circular lounges that have 6 to 8 gaming PCs all hooked up to them, and you just sit on one quadrant of it, basically, playing on the gaming PC. And then just all around, they have couches and tables littered everywhere. And they have a system where they have all the game consoles in the back, but all of their wiring is wired through the ceiling into the TV, so you can just say, click button, I would like to switch to the Nintendo Switch. Click button, I would like to switch to a PlayStation 5.
Yep.
And it just does everything on back end for you. And that is a fascinating evolution to me of the shops that I grew up in. But I think that bringing up those kind of shops, though, a thing that comes to mind immediately is I remember those were kind of your big hubs for video game debates.
Yeah.
That was where you got a lot of it's like everybody can point to console war shit happening on YouTube and on forums, but that's really uninteresting for me. The fucking mudslinging fights that happened for people who were right across from each other playing different consoles in a little gaming haven. That shit's memorable to me because you can't really, you don't really replicate that anymore. We can just go to an internet flame war board and I can get everything that I got from the console wars again.
I think though, like, to your point, that type of interaction, like, people just aren't as invested, I think, in most things anymore. Like gaming, consoles, PCs, everything's become so modular that it'd almost be really hard to even have. Like, even genres of games, I would say, are so flexible these days.
It's not just it's not just the genres and games have become more flexible. It's the people playing them have become very, very different. Because back during early 2000s and late 2000s, most people playing video games were honestly, at least openly, were honestly guys. It was considered a boy thing to do. And then somewhere around 2008, 2009, we started getting a lot of games that became much more gender neutral. And then the audience spectrum exploded. And now you're just as likely to be sniped in the head playing a COD game by a girl as you are a guy. And it's like, okay. And because the demographic has changed, so has the culture around what we consider worth debating. Like,
well, yeah, now instead of having debates over whether you should have a Wii or an Xbox, now people argue over whether game is woke because Anita Sarkeesian was a consultant on it. I had somebody in my chat get pissed at me for playing Slay the Spire because it was too woke of a game because Anita Sarkeesian was a consultant on it. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? I know she was, but name the woke thing in the game. Is it because in the second game Silent is black? Is that the woke? Is the woke there? What the fuck are you talking about? Go touch grass. Get a hobby.
Well, but I think that was like one of the splits. Like, you talk about like since the topic is supposed to be what makes games good. Yeah. Like, I think there became this weird thing where it became like attaching things to games that were generally, because I think most people who play video games are not quite as into the woke, not woke debate. I think that's largely a very fringe part of the gaming. Yeah, it's a fringe part of the gaming community. But the people who are in that are always wanting to attach that to the larger games that appeal to the wider community. And I think at the end of the day, what you see is that it's the wokeness or the not wokeness is never something that appeals or doesn't appeal. I think it'd be very difficult to argue Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't a woke game.
It's woke as shit, and there's
gay
great.
characters all over the place.
And it's a fantastic video game, and the fact that people speed run bear sex is weird to me, but they do it.
But I've seen people argue that, like, oh, but actually Larry and, the studio that made it didn't actually want to put any of that stuff in there. They were forced to. So it was a good game with, like, woke staples on top
they
of
were all pent up.
I know.
They were pent up in COVID. They were horny bastards.
Well, so, I mean, basically all the Baldur's Gate games were. But, like, that I think is, like, an interesting part of it as well, where, like, games aren't, the experience of playing a game isn't enough for a game to be good to a certain part of gamers nowadays. Whether or not a game is good, a lot of times does come down to that idea of, like, does it conform to a certain agenda or not?
Like Swin, the current CEO of Larian Studios, he hasn't actually gone to a Pride event himself, but several of his staff do, and he actually paid for them to go and gave them paid vacation for the Pride events.
Sure. Yeah.
Because
No,
like,
like-
and then like you have Divinity 1 and 2, but before that, before like the Divinity Original Sin games, you have Divinity, just Divinity, and it's woke as hell because in that game, and this came out, God, this was an Xbox One game. Its original release is like 2003, 2004. I played Divinity 1 and 2.
So you're going to have to correct the words you said because that's not Xbox One, because Xbox One is the third
Yeah, I was gonna
Xbox.
say. Yeah.
Because Microsoft
Okay.
is a stupid company ran by dumb people.
The original Xbox and the 360, aka the one that would burn out on you randomly. So these games are like a third-person RPG action hybrid type deal. They're kind of like, I guess they technically qualify as like a Souls game, but this is before Dark Souls came out. But you can just straight up in the tutorial of Divinity 2 seduce and screw a barmaid and the bartender, and they're opposite genders.
Yeah?
And it does not matter what gender you are. And this is in the tutorial section.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. I really need you to leave, though, and actually go check out the guests on this video. That would be really cool. But the lights are off, so, fuck off.